Hey guys, welcome back to the Darth Kilhoun channel. This is your host, Darth Kilhoun, as we review part 3 of the Horus Heresy book, False Gods, second book in the series and third part of the second book. Which this part is, it feels like it should be shorter, but it is really dragged on because it's much more drama and exposition going on in it, but it's necessary exposition for the future of the series, because this is roughly the most important series of events to happen in the Horus Heresy, because it will set the path for the future. And it starts off with the temple on Davin. Humans from the 63rd expedition, along with Davin's residents, and hundreds of Astartes have taken down from the fleet. They are mourning the Primarch Horus Lupercal, hoping that he makes a full recovery. And the Remembrancers, the humans, and the Mechanicus Titan Princeps has started a religious movement to give prayer and hope for the War Master, which has turned many of the humans towards worshipping the Emperor, turning them to spirituality to try to solve their grieving and pain, and to believe that they are helping Horus. The Astartes are very disgusted by this. Gabriel Loken, he kind of takes a back seat, along with Torgadon and the other major Astartes, but they see this and they are kind of disgusted by it. They are very militant atheists, like communists, believing that religion just holds back humanity and keeps them from their true potential, keeping them in constant ignorance. But then they are just they're worshipping Horus, they're worshipping the Emperor, giving praise and thanks, kind of turning the Astartes aren't willing to do anything to them because they are also grieving, but they are grieving in their own way. But then it goes up to Horus, which is arguably the most important plot thread in part 3, where he is in the warp. He was transported there, his soul taken out of his body from the temple on Davin to communicate with the Chaos Gods. And he is confronted by Erebus, disguised as one of Horus's sons, Hastur Sejanus, one who died in the last book. And Erebus has taken his form to act like, oh yes, I'm dead too, and I'm in the warp. I am going to guide you, and he takes Horus to see the potential future. And this future is of if the future remains on current course of events, which he shows him a world completely given over to the worship of the Emperor, made a giant cathedral to him. He sees giant statues of his brother Primarchs, 9 of them that have remained loyal: Sanguinius, Guilliman, Corvus Corax, Rogel Dorn, Reboot, and Jagatai Khan, and a few others. But he notices them, but he doesn't notice himself. He notices them praising the Emperor, but not praising Horus, who conquered the galaxy for the Emperor. And he's like, well, where's my praise? Where's my worship? Why am I not respected? Why am I not treated the way that my brothers are in this case? And that's because this is the Imperium after Horus betrays the Emperor. And this is after half the Primarchs too. They all betray the Emperor and they're all demonized in the Imperium, while then the loyalist Primarchs are held up as demigods or saints in their eyes, with the Emperor as the chief god. And they're worshipping him, and he's disgusted by this. Then Erebus shows Horus the gestation tubes with the 20 Primarchs, and he tells him that the Emperor got the knowledge to create the Primarchs from the Chaos Gods. He made a deal with them, but then broke this deal. And he is now using the Primarchs to conquer the galaxy for him, so he can establish his cult and destroy the Chaos Gods. Which isn't completely false. Erebus is telling a lot of half-truths to manipulate Horus towards his way of thinking. And Horus is taking this all up. He can't understand it. He doesn't get it. And then he's confronted by some custodian guards that notice them, even though they're supposed to be like ghosts to them. Kills two of them, then is confronted by the Emperor, and he causes a warp rift to form that pulls the gestation troops into the warp and are scattered amongst the galaxy. So he's led to believe that he caused this, and it happened because of him. Although this whole idea of time travel is kind of meh. I don't believe that was Horus that did it. I believe it was the Chaos Gods that did it, but Erebus manipulates him to think that he did do it, even though he didn't. And he takes him to talk with the Chaos Gods, and he's like, well, we will heal you if you become our arbiter, if you take over mankind and stop the Emperor, because we just want to live in peace and harmony with mankind in our own realm separate from yours. And Horus believes this at first until his brother Magnus the Red comes. He was stalking him the entire time, and he finally broke through the spells that Erebus put up to block Magnus from getting to Horus. Magnus confronts him and says that no, this is wrong. The Emperor doesn't have any malicious intent. He intends to enlighten the galaxy, and if you keep on going down this path, you will fall into this trap. You will betray the Emperor, betray everything that you stand for. And then Horus just tells them both to be silent as Erebus and Magnus begin to argue between each other, and he makes his own decision. And that decision is to side with the Chaos Gods. He falls into Erebus's trap and doesn't listen to Magnus, which will be ultimately his downfall. And that's like the climax for Horus's character and how he chooses to go down this dark path laid out before him by the Chaos Gods. Then it goes over to back up to the Vengeful Spirit, which the Remembrancers are. They are worshipping the Emperor. They're spreading around flyers about the Imperial Cult and the Legione Divinitatus, or essentially their Bible, preaching to the human crew to say, like, don't worry about Horus. He'll be fine. He's in the Emperor's care. And they start to do this, but then also some of them are forming a plot against the Astartes. A plot to report them to the Council of Terror for judicial justice for the death that they caused when they were escorting Horus to the Apothecarium. And the Gabriel Loken is kind of taken aback by this. He doesn't understand why they'd be so Astartes on average don't understand human emotions very well, or human feelings and desires. So he questions like, well, why are you doing this? We are the defenders of mankind. And the Remembrancers are like, well, you are the defenders of mankind, but you need to earn our respect. If you just treat us like slaves, you are not protecting us, you are ruling us, like tyrants. Because the Astartes have a lot of autonomy, and they're allowed to do virtually whatever they want, especially to humans, basic humans, even though they're supposed to be their protectors. And the Remembrancers point this out, and Gabriel Loken, he's kind of taken aback because he understands this, but yet he also doesn't want to believe it. But also other Remembrancers, specifically Cinderman and Keeler, they are pouring over drinks, and Cinderman talks about how he's deciphering this one book that he found, which is the Book of Lorgar, which is written in an ancient language that he doesn't understand. And Keeler is both a follower of the Imperial Cult and a imagist, or essentially a wartime photographer. And she took images of Erebus and notices the few symbols that are the same with the Book of Lorgar that he had tattooed onto his skin. And Cinderman takes the images, deciphers the language from the tattoos on Erebus, and uses that to decipher the Book of Lorgar. And as he's translating it, he's chanting it, and he accidentally summons a demon from the warp. I believe it's a Zinj demon because it's described as blue and having blue flames. Not really a red bloodthirster of Khorne or pink like Slaanesh or anything. So they summon a demon, and it nearly kills him before an astropath uses his warp abilities to block it. And then they get out of the archives, or library in this case, locking the demon inside, but it breaks through. And Keeler says, by the Emperor, and it causes the demon pain because the Emperor is like this antithesis to the warp. He's like the negative energy towards them. And then she holds up her Imperial Aquila, which is like holding up the cross or anything, to the demon and says the powers of the Emperor essentially compel you, like an exorcism, and it causes it pain, suffering, and it's eventually driven out of the material realm and back into the warp. She banishes it back. And this intrigues Cinderman because it kind of confirms that the Emperor is this divine being at this point. Lorgar wasn't necessarily wrong in believing that the Emperor was nearly a god at this point. And the fact that he could, that even just mentioning his name could cause demon's pain, really shows like where the series is going and how they're treating the Emperor. But then that's the end of that major plot thread on this part of the book, and it goes to back down to Dobbin, where where on the 9th day, the day that Horus is supposed to reemerge from the temple, hundreds of Astartes and tens of thousands of humans have gathered at the steps of the temple to see if the War Master will walk out alive or be dead. And Loken and Torgadon form their own party. They bring their Astartes with them, loaded for battle. Abaddon and the other Mournival members do the same because they might just have a succession crisis if Horus ends up being dead without a true heir to inherit the Legion. So they're being ready for battle, but Torgadon, he tries to light the moon, and he does, trying to get them all united back together by making a joke about, well, we're just here to see Horus walk out of that temple gate, hoping for a miracle, and the other Mournival members stand down, they all do, cutting the tension in the air with a knife, and the doors open. At first, Loken thinks they're automated because nothing's coming out, nobody pushed open the doors, and it's so dark, and everything so still. There's no light shining into the temple, so he can't see anything. And he believes that the War Master is dead, that he believes Horus is dead. And he begins to walk to it to retrieve the corpse when metallic footprints start pressing against the floor, and Horus emerges from the temple on Dobbin, fully healed, making his pact with the Chaos Gods. And this is the Astartes cheer out for him, cheering his name, cheering that he lives, not realizing what their father has done and how he damned his entire legion to eternity and traitorism towards the Astartes, to the Imperium, to humanity in general. And yeah, then it goes on to part 4. Part 4 seems to be really short, I think it's going to be roughly half the length. I can't wait to read it and get that review out, and then do an overall review where I'm going to sum it all up and give my full opinion, because this is a really good book. It's arguably one of the better 40k stories that I've read in a while. Even though a lot of 40k lore is pretty good, this is arguably the best. So thank you guys for all joining me today. Look out for part 4 and the overview. This is Darth Kilhoun, signing off.